This is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. I want to share with you today a article from the Louisville Defender, published in their Thursday, November 18, 2021 issue. Some of you may or may not know the history of Louisville Defender. If you don't, I would suggest you check it out. You know, at one time in Louisville, Kentucky, they had 3 black newspapers. And out of those 3, the Louisville Defender is the one that is still publishing today. Frank Stanley started it. He was a brilliant journalist and entrepreneur. He also was a key figure in the creation of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. And then I heard through the grapevine that some idiot at the University of Louisville actually referred to people like Frank Stanley as cowards. Oh, that really rankled me. But anyway, after Frank Stanley died, his son continued publishing the paper, Frank Stanley Jr., and there's another family that is keeping the Louisville Defender alive. It's an important newspaper. It's really important for conservatives in Indiana and Kentucky to keep in touch with the Louisville Defender. We should subscribe to the Louisville Defender. Today I'm going to talk to you about an article. It's published in the Louisville Defender, again, November 18, 2021. 2021 elections proved real, the connections Republicans are making with black voters. Now, that is an article that you're rarely going to find amongst, printed by liberal media. And I don't want to say the Louisville Defender is 100% liberal, but it leans left. And boy, when I saw that they had this article, I just sort of jumped for joy and immediately bought an issue. I usually do buy like an issue a couple of times a month, but I definitely made it a point to buy this issue. And this was written by Stacy M. Brown. Let me just start off with the first paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I just want to give you a little taste here. Quote, during the decisive victory scored by Republicans on Election Day, significant shifts occurred among crucial voting groups, which has only added to the misery of Democrats. Notably, black voters showed up for Republicans in Virginia and elsewhere. Get this issue. It's worth reading for this article alone. I think the Defender only costs like about 75 cents a copy. I'm not sure what his subscription is, but it's worth it. Again, I like to appeal to conservatives in Indiana and Kentucky. We all should be subscribing to the Louisville Defender. And let me just read the end here. It says, quote, the RNC, the Republican National Committee, remains committed to expanding our party, supporting our black Republican leaders, and having meaningful engagement through RNC Black Community Centers. And this was written by a leader in the Republican Party. Let me tell you something, folks. You got these black radicals out here who basically have to push the false narrative that Republicans are racist. They got to push that. Because if they're not pushing that, then they're going to lose credibility, support, power, resources from within the Democratic Party. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They got to push that narrative. They got to push that false narrative. And to date, to some degree, I think it's deteriorating more and more. But it's a flat-out false narrative. It's a ridiculous one, and I'm surprised that it still holds some credibility within the black community. Let me give you some examples. I was on Facebook, maybe it was like a couple of years back, and this black person was on my Facebook page claiming how Republicans, I've never seen them come into the hood. They ain't talking to us folks in the hood. They scared to come into the hood. She actually said, and she was using the word the hood. I'm quoting her on that. She also said they're scared to come into the hood because they racist. And I was like, what is she talking about? There was a Republican. She was running for the mayor's office, and she was smack dab in, quote unquote, the hood, campaigning for votes. She was right there. I saw her. I took literature from her. I talked to her. I watched her take photos with people. Right there. And if you want me to tell you the location, I'd be more than happy to tell you the location. And she had this Republican candidate even had one of her signs on the front lawn of a black church. I've known other Republicans, like Rhonda Palazzo. She was running for Congress. She was trying to replace John Yarmouth. She can tell you right now, you mention one or two black churches, she can tell you exactly how to get there. Because she has gone there multiple times to speak to the pastor, to speak to the congregation, to build relationships. No fear, no hesitation. Boom, went there, goes there, no problem. Dr. Frank Simon, who's a known conservative here in the city of Louisville, has close relationships with like 2 or 3 black ministers. He goes into the hood many times. And you oftentimes got to wonder, what are these black radicals talking about? How can they be so brazen in their lying? People, I'm not saying they're ignorant or they're mistaken. They're lying. They know this is happening. I heard from one conservative, Ron Paul, tried to set up an office. It was deep in West Louisville. I was sort of surprised he went that deep into West Louisville. And I was surprised because no other, even Democratic Party candidates didn't do that. Democratic Party people didn't do that, but he did. And don't you know, a bunch of black radicals chased him out. Just raised so much of a stink, he said, well, forget this, I got to leave. But that's what he wanted to do. That's what he tried to do. But what do these black radicals lady tell? Oh, they're racist. They don't like you. They hate you. They don't want to communicate with you. It's a lie. That's a brazen lie. I mean, again, it's not like they're saying this out of ignorance. People, if I know it, I know they know it. They're lying. And that's to push, it's their intent to push that false narrative so that they can have some credibility, some standing, some power, and get within the Democratic Party and to get some resources from the Democratic Party. Folks, let me tell you something. And I've been saying this for a long time to black and white conservatives. Many times, white conservatives will tell me, what can we do to get the black community to come back to the Republican Party? And they mean come back to the Republican Party because they know the original home for black folk in America, as far as the two major parties are concerned, is the Republican Party. Frederick Douglass was a Republican. Booker T. Washington favored the Republican Party. Jackie Robinson was a Republican. Go look at the voting records. Go look at them. But anyway, so they're saying, white conservatives often say to me, what can we do to bring the black community over? And I finally got to the point, I started saying this. We don't need all of them. We don't need 90, 95, 100%. We don't need it. Here's what we do need. 20 to 25% of black voters consistently, faithfully, on the local, state, and national level voting Republican. That's what we need. We do that, Democratic Party is going to be losing elections left and right, all throughout this country, on the local level, state level, and federal level. 20, 22, 25%. That's what we need. That's what our goal should be. The black vote in the United States of America literally changed the direction of this nation. We could start having really having a military that's second to none. We can start having freer markets. We can start having more free speech. We can start limiting government and maybe even reducing government. We don't need 90, 95, 100% of black folk back in the Republican Party. It'd be great to have that, and I know many white conservatives want that, but I'm telling them right here and now, we don't need it. It's not our goal. Our goal is 20, 22, 25% on the local, state, and national level. We get that and get that consistently, it's over. Republican Party's over. Their party's over. And they would have to, in order to get that back, they'd have to turn back to embracing American values as opposed to this socialist nonsense they're doing right now. The black voter in the United States of America is critical. It's absolutely critical. That's why they have, it's absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. And we Republicans, we conservatives, we patriots, our focus is to get 20, 22, 25% of black voters faithfully, consistently on the local, state, and national level voting Republican or voting Libertarian or voting conservative. It would punch a major hole within the Democratic Party. They'd be losing elections left and right. And then as a consequence, they'd start turning right. They start coming back to embracing American values. They start coming back to embracing free speech, intellectual diversity, etc. Because they would oust those nutcases they have controlling their party right now. And the Republican Party would be strong again. And I mean strong. And I mean strong, and it would make America strong again. Okay, folks, that's Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. Check out my website, booktalkwithcorbin.com. And please give me some comments on what I just, my analysis, what I just said.